Hi, Inside Broadway students and theater fans. Welcome to Inside Broadway's Career in Theater video series. I'm Douglas Lyons, and I hope you are having a wonderful, safe day today. Today we are here to talk about the work and dedication it takes to put up a Broadway show. And it's not just the actors on stage. So much happens to make that happen. It takes writers and directors and investors and creatives and producers and tons of development. So regardless to where a show happens, whether it's in your middle school auditorium or on Broadway, it cannot happen without a production stage manager. So this person, the production stage manager, is the steerer of the ship. They make sure everyone is safe and taken care of. They make sure that everyone in the building is on one accord. You may not see them, but the show cannot go on without them. So luckily, today I get to interview a friend and one of Broadway's top production stage managers, Cody Renard Richard.
Hello.
Hey y'all! So Cody, can you explain to everyone what is a production stage manager?
Sure. I'll break it down really simple because I can talk for hours about what a production stage manager is. But essentially, a production stage manager is the lead stage manager, and they are the center of, you think of like a Ferris wheel, like that center axis point that makes the Ferris wheel spin. That's kind of what the production stage manager is. So that's where we sit. So we are the person who is sending out information to everyone and making sure that the show runs properly. So we are the communication hub. We are the first point of contact when you come into the theater to talk about what's happening for the day. So in a nutshell, we're the thing that keeps the ball rolling, if you will.
Got it. That's epic. So before we talk about your career, we want to know where you're originally from.
Yeah, I'm originally from Houston, Texas. I grew up on a ranch, actually, but Houston's where I'm from.
Like ranch dressing or like?
Nah, like ranch, like cowboy.
Awesome. And what got you interested in theater?
So I was sort of pushed into the theater. I was a troubled kid. I was a class clown. I loved making people laugh. I would always talk back to my teachers. I do not suggest you do that. But that was my journey. So I was in detention a lot, and essentially my high school counselor told me that I needed to join the drama club because I had a lot of energy that I needed to release. So I did, and I loved it. I fell in love with the people and the atmosphere and just the world of theater in high school, and that's kind of what started it.
So did you want to maybe be an actor first? Like, how did you become that organized stage manager?
I mean, yes, I acted in, acted in 2 shows when I was in high school, and I did not like it. I was always so self-conscious about acting. I was on stage and always second-guessing what I was doing. I didn't like all these people staring at me, but I liked the attention part of it. So I loved the theater, but I didn't necessarily like the acting part on stage. So luckily, my high school theater teacher, she told me something that still sticks with me to this day. She pulled me aside my sophomore year of high school, and she told me that I had a way of making people listen to them without yelling, and I should be her stage manager. At the time, all I heard was, I get to be in charge. So I was like, sure, sign me up. And that's kind of what started me stage managing in high school.
Awesome. And where did you go to school? Did you train professionally, like in college for stage management, or?
I did. I went to Webster Conservatory in St. Louis, Missouri.
Awesome. And how was the program?
It was great. I loved it. I'm an only child, so I wanted to get out of Texas. So I progressively got further and further away by moving to New York and St. Louis. But working at Webster and learning from the school there was amazing.
Awesome. And do you need to go to school to be a stage manager? Like as an actor, myself, some people don't train and they end up on Broadway very quickly. Like is stage management something you have to study?
No, I mean, I think with anything in life, you don't have to go to school to do it. But I do recommend going to school. I think those 4 years after high school is imperative to just growth. If you can afford that, if you're able to do that. But to be a stage manager, you don't have to go to school for it. There's a lot of people that I've worked with who were actors previously or who, was lawyers and just other random jobs and found the theater and fell into stage managing.
Awesome. Now, after graduating from Webster, what got you to Broadway? What was your route, in production stage management that got you to?
Yeah, I did an off-Broadway show here in New York that paid me $50 in a Metro card back in 2011, which was not a lot of money, but it was, you know, something that I had to do in order for me to try to realize this dream. But I did this show off Broadway, and that show ended up moving to Broadway. It was called 𝙤𝙨 and when that show moved, you know, I fought to stay on with it. They replaced the stage management team, and I found a way for them not to replace me. So that was, so long story short, that was essentially how I started my Broadway journey. It was with that show.
Awesome. We understand it's been a very difficult year for students that have been at home and not able to be with their teachers. I think theater teachers are the most influential and important teachers that one can have. Like for me personally, I had a teacher that came in my junior year. She was an English teacher, but she started a theater program, and meeting her changed my life. So question for you, are there any teachers that changed your life and pushed you on your journey?
Oh, absolutely. There are three. Maybe even more, but Carrie Wood and her husband Brian Wood were my high school theater teachers. Carrie was the head of the program, and Brian did the, it's weird calling them by their first names now, because I'm an adult. But Brian did the technical part of the program. And they really took me under their wing, and they were the ones who opened my eyes to theater in general and let me know that I could do this as a career. They drove me to the International Thespian Festival in Lincoln, Nebraska, so I could interview for colleges. So they really were a huge champion of me pursuing theater. I had no idea what Broadway was. I had no idea that you could, you know, make a living doing this when I was in high school. So they were really huge advocates of that.
That's awesome. How long have you been a stage manager?
I moved to New York in 2010, so I would say 11 years, but more so because I started in college and I worked, you know, at summer stock, so I guess for about 15 years.
Bam. What makes a good stage manager versus maybe a bad stage manager?
Ooh, the D. Ooh. I mean, you know, I think what makes a good stage manager really comes down to your people skills. I mean, if you're a good human and you care about people and you have a passion for leading and influencing a group of people, you would be a good stage manager. The rest of it you can learn. The organization, the technical skills, all of the rules, you can learn that. But, you know, it really comes from wanting to see other people succeed. Because as a stage manager, we are in the business of service. I'm only as good as the show is, or as Douglas is, or as you are. So if I'm providing you with the tools for you to be great, then I'm doing my job. So that's what I think makes a good stage manager. And I guess what would make a not so good stage manager, you know, people who aren't necessarily there for the show, who are there to serve their egos, people who are a little bit negative, people who are about I and not a team, because we have to remember that theater is collaborative. It is a team effort. No one is greater than the next person, and that includes the stage manager. So that's what I would say are, you know, maybe the flip sides of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off that too. I think being a good person and a good human being is way more important than being famous or being talented. Like the ground you walk on as a human, like the goodness you put into the world is the base, I think, for every performer or artist in this industry. Yeah. And it turns over and over again because you make more contacts and connections that way. So just remember that.
I say this all the time, that I would much rather hire someone to work on my team if they are a good person, rather than the person who is not so good. It's kind of a little bit of a negative person who has all the skills. I would rather teach someone the skills who is lovely to work with than the other. So keep that in mind as well.
Yes. Amen. You have worked on Lion King, Motown, Dear Evan Hansen, Paramore, and Hamilton. Can you tell us about your experience working on Lion King and Hamilton?
Sure. They were both very different experiences. So I joined Lion King back in 2015, I think. I joined as a substitute stage manager, and a substitute stage manager is someone who fills in for vacations or personal days or when people are sick. So I interviewed, they brought me on, and I would just come in and out of the show. So I wasn't necessarily there full time for a long time, but stepping into that show, it was the first time I replaced someone. It was also the first time that I had worked on a show of that scale. So having to learn that show so quickly took a lot. But Lion King is, I call it the gift that keeps on giving. I started there 5-6 years ago, and they still call me in, when I'm in between shows. It's such a fun place to be, looking at all those puppets and just hearing that music. So Lion King was great. And then Hamilton, I joined Hamilton. It's Hamilton, right? I joined that show the second year after it opened, and it kind of just happened. It was fate. I interviewed for the tour, and for whatever reasons that didn't work out. I was out in LA doing a show, and I got a call saying that there was an open position happening on Broadway. Would you be interested? And of course, I was like, yes! So I joined the show, and there was another moment where I walked into the building in a show that was already running. So it was a little challenging just to step into an atmosphere that had already been created. I was used to helping create the atmosphere of the show. But with all that said, it was great. Hamilton is amazing. It has changed how we look at musical theater. My mom knows what Hamilton is, and she doesn't know anything about musical theater. I was home in Texas a couple years ago, and they were playing one of the songs on the radio. It's insane. So just to be a part of that history, it's been really rewarding, and it's such a good group. Lin-Manuel is a very nice guy. I feel like I should say that because people always ask me that. But yeah, it was a great experience.
Fantastic. I know the day in the life of an actor, right? Showing up to the theater. But can you walk us through a day in the life of a stage manager? Because I know stage managers put in far more hours than actors. So can you walk us through when you arrive at the building through the end of the night?
Yeah, so I'll walk you through a day when there's a lot going on. So a typical day, if we're in performances, I won't bore you with the technical rehearsals or the rehearsal period, but when we're in performances, when the show is running, so say for instance, I'm at 𝙤𝙤𝙨𝙞𝙙 HANSEN, and it's a Thursday. I'll wake up, have my time, and then normally we would start rehearsal at the theater around 1 o'clock. So we would have to be at the theater around 12:30 or 12 o'clock to just make sure everything is set up and that all the crew is there, and to welcome the cast when they get there. From 1 to 5, we would rehearse with the understudies, the people who cover the lead roles that you see perform each night. We would do that rehearsal. At 5 o'clock, we'll take a little break. We'll come back at 6:30 to set up for the performance, and then the cast is called in at 7:30. So we have an hour before they get there to kind of set up what show you get to see. So sometimes people call out, sometimes people are sick, so we have to figure out the tectus of how the show is going to work, as well as figuring out where all the moving pieces are going to be. So we do that, we do the show at 8, the show comes down around 10:30, and then we produce a report to everybody who's not in the building to let them know what happened in the show. If it's a normal show and everything is great and the audience clapped and left, we get out early. If it's not a normal show and say the automation didn't work, or Douglas decided not to sing a song because he didn't want to, that doesn't happen. But sometimes it might. We had to take a little longer to write the report. But so the days are pretty long. So a typical day sometimes can be from 12 to 11 p.m.
Now you are in charge of kind of running the ship, making sure everyone gets along in the building, the temperament, all that. So can you talk to us about managing that? Because you're managing personalities, not just, the business.
Yeah.
How is that? Because I don't know how that works.
It is interesting. No, so that's why when I was saying that it's important to be a good person, I think when you think about managing different people's personalities and egos and temperaments, you have to remove yourself from the equation. So it's more about what people need in order for them to succeed. So that's the way I approach it. there will be times when you work with divas and they're going to need something very different than times when you work with, someone who's green and it's their Broadway debut. So I think it's really about approaching each person and kind of seeing what they need. And sometimes it's exhausting because you need stuff too. So, and that's why we have a team. There's usually 3 to 5 stage managers on each Broadway show. So sometimes you can kind of like delegate some of those tasks. But yeah, that is a huge part of stage managing, is managing the atmosphere, the cultural climate is what I like to call it. But
What would you say is your most challenging part of being a stage manager?
Wow, I don't know how I was going to answer this, but I would say is that I think for me the most challenging part is, I don't want to say reprimanding, but having to discipline performers or crew members, because me as Cody, as an adult, as a stage manager, I feel that I shouldn't have to discipline someone to do their job. But because things happen and people want to play around and people want to do X, Y, and Z, sometimes someone has to wrangle and tell people that this is not okay. So for me, that's the most difficult part, because I just want people to show up and do their job and then we can go home. But that's not always the case.
I have a funny story. During Mormon on Broadway, Josh Gad at the time went up on his line in the middle of the show. And I could hear our stage manager, Karen, from the box screaming the line. She was literally screaming the line to him. So when things have gone wrong in a show, how do you recover? Like, can you tell us an example? Like, how do you bounce back in a moment where something's blown up?
Yeah, I mean, so many things have gone wrong. Like, I used to get so nervous about it, and now it's like, okay, well, we're just gonna do this. I think the key to covering up or fixing an issue when it goes wrong is just to stay calm and like rely on the people around you, I remember when I was doing a show called Ghost, the musical on Broadway, and in previews, one of our actresses lost her voice, and we were trying to figure out if someone was going to be in the wing and sing the songs while she lip-synced on stage, or if we were going to send somebody out with the script to let the audience know, or if we were going to be in the wing with the script and like yelling out a line in case that they went up. And it was kind of like we did a little bit of everything. So like it just depends on the show, you kind of have to roll with the punches and stay calm and just remember that it's just a show. And that, unless safety is involved, we're gonna be able to move through it. There have been times on shows that were a little bit more technical when things went wrong and we had to do a hard stop, is what we call it, and make sure that everyone stays where they are until the thing is resolved so no one gets injured. So like it depends on what's going wrong. But I think the key is to remain calm and to just make sure that people know what's happening.
Great. With Broadway shut down for the past year, how have you pivoted? I know you've done some activism work and started your own scholarship. Can you talk more about how you've survived the past year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said the word survive, because that's kind of what it felt like. It's like we all had to figure out how to survive in this time. It's been hard. But it also has been uplifting and rewarding in certain moments. So for me, it's been a lot of just kind of sitting with my thoughts and figuring out what I need to do for myself in this moment. A lot of self-care, a lot of not so much stage managing, because I tell people all the time that I'm allergic to Zoom theater. So I've been trying to do, other things that fuel my soul. Back last year in September, I launched a scholarship program specifically for BIPOC individuals who are studying non-performance related degrees. I find that up until recently, we only talked about diversity on the stage. We didn't talk so much about it off stage or in our producers or directors or any of those things. So it's important for me to provide a space for these students. So that was really exciting. We launched that and that really took off, and we just finished with our first cohort of scholars. I also, have been using this opportunity to kind of, I don't want to say find my voice, but to use my voice more, to kind of engage in conversations and to remind people of their worth and to let people know that, certain things that happened before, not certain things that we continue to do, and just been speaking. I hate saying speaking out because that's not what I feel like I'm doing, but I feel like just sharing my experiences to hopefully engage other people to shine a mirror on themselves, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I've just been involved in the community and doing all the things.
No, and I think it's important. I think, you know, I don't know, on Dreamgirls I had a black stage manager, a couple of them, but predominantly all of my stage managers have been white people. And so I think it's a celebration to have you here because there aren't very many African American stage managers in the space. So speaking up right now is very important because I think sometimes we're in the buildings, but we don't necessarily have a voice. And during this time, everything is paused, and we definitely have a voice. You go on Facebook and create a voice.
So I will also say that, you know, thinking about the scholarship, one of the other reasons why I started it is because I never had a mentor that looked like me. Like, I had amazing people who have helped me along my journey, amazing people who have mentored me, but I've never had someone to look up to and be like, oh, you remind me of myself, I want to do that. I had to carve out this lane for myself. And sure, there have been, you know, black people along the way that I've met, but I've never met a stage manager like myself. You know, my first 5 years of working in New York City on Broadway, I only worked with one other black stage manager, and I didn't know of any others until a little bit later. And then when I found out who they were, the number was still very small, you know? So I thought that was very important, especially now for me stepping into this role. People seeing me in this role, I know for myself that it's important. I probably wouldn't have thought this way a couple of years ago, but I know that now. So that's what I keep trying to, you know, impart on people and yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to own our spaces. Like, I'm an actor turned writer, and I've learned just putting stuff out there and letting kids know that there's someone writing for you, if you're a person of color, changes their excitement of the future. So I think our roles are very important that way. How do you stay positive in tough times that we're living through? Like, what do you do? What's your regimen of positivity to get you through?
Yeah, you know, I operate from a place of joy. I do. I find that it's easier for me to laugh than it is for me to sit and dwell in something that's negative. So when I'm surrounded by things that are less than positive, I try to take a step back and just remind myself of why I'm here, you know, why I woke up today. You know, I try to lean into those things. You know, I think that we overcomplicate it sometimes. We try to like, well, it needs to be this, and it can really just be the simplest things. Going for a walk can bring you joy. Coloring can bring you joy, like calling your best friend. So for me, like when it's moments where I'm feeling a little bit less than positive or a little negative, I try to lean in on all the things that I do naturally, just so I can like infuse that, you know, like seeing other people happy makes me happy. So I try to, you know, bring that into a room and to people.
And I think this time has taught us that every day we are on earth, to see another day is a gift. Which I think in New York City that can be taken for granted because you're moving and shaking, but then when things are taken away, it's like, oh, wait a minute, just breathing today is enough. So for me, that's very valuable. What would you say to future stage managers out there watching? How would you encourage them with where they are right now?
Yeah, I mean, if there's anyone out there right now who wants to stage manage, I say go for it. You know, I think, you know, it's really important to try every aspect of theater. I think some of the best stage managers are people who are well-rounded. So even not even theater. So if you are interested in history, that's only going to make you a better stage manager if you're working on a piece about whatever, because you're just more knowledgeable about what's happening. If you are interested in psychology, do that. That's only going to make you a better stage. So like the more you study and the more you are a well-rounded person, I think that's going to help you. And also just don't be discouraged by this time that we're in. You know, this is only a moment. As you can see, things are starting to resurface. And we're only going to continue to grow from there. So try not to be discouraged by where you are at the moment, and just keep remembering where you want to go. Because believe me, you know, if I can be any type of testament to anybody, you know, I never knew that I would have this career or life that I'm currently living when I was 14 years old in Houston, Texas, in, you know, detention in high school. You know what I mean? Like, no, if they would have told me that I would have, you know, done all these crazy things and met all these crazy people and be living in New York City and X, Y, and Z, I would not have believed you. So just remember that, you know, anything is really possible. So if you want to do it, you can.
I think that's a great way to close. Anything is possible. Thank you, Cody, so much for sharing your story and your craft, and enjoy.
Yeah.
Be safe.